Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Tom's Takes. All day long, I was going through my phone, through Twitter, looking to see what was trending, any topics that jumped out at me that I wanted to discuss. I was debating whether to make a video today, just because right after work, I need to drive all the way through rush hour traffic and help a friend move last minute. So I'm kind of scrunched for time, but I ran into a story that I could actually comment on. I just read earlier today, Rory Jr. passed away. He lived a long life. He passed away at 85. I was trying to look for the reason why he passed away, but there was nothing specific. He was not doing well. He was in hospice care, so he must have had an ailment that was life-threatening if you're in hospice care. Rory Jr., for those of you who don't know who he was a wrestler back in the 80s, 90s. I caught him towards the tail end. I caught him towards the tail end of his career, I believe. At least I only saw him for a short portion of time when he was in the WWF, which is now called WWE. His brother, Terry Funk, was originally one of the original Funk brothers that was on WWF, and then Rory came in afterwards. Their sticklers. They were kind of two Texas cowboy type of rough around the edges type of wrestlers, and they really did a good job with their persona. But I believe in real life they were probably pretty tough. I've seen some of their matches when they were younger, and they were very brutal. They were very bloody. So I do believe I get that wrestling is scripted, but at the same time they are very tough to go through the beating that they do go through. There's people that wind up with permanent damage. I still am, but not as much as I used to be, but I love professional wrestling. I started watching professional wrestling back in grade school, junior high, through high school. I got out of it in college, and I really enjoyed the characters back in the 80s, 90s. They were like Hulk Hogan, Iron Sheik, Andre the Giant. At that time, it was like larger than life. I used to remember watching them Saturday morning, and I absolutely loved it. It just I started watching it in sixth grade. I believe one of my classmates in sixth grade was talking about wrestling, so I gave it a shot, and then I just got hooked on it. And it wasn't until about freshman year in high school, that I realized that it was scripted, that it was fake. I mean, they do get hurt, but at the same time, the outcomes are pretty much predetermined. And once I found out that wrestling was fake, it actually hit me a lot harder than finding out that Santa Claus was not real. I think with Santa Claus, I kind of always knew that it was probably not true, but for some reason, the first couple of years I watched wrestling, I firmly believed that they were doing what they were doing, and they were just incredible athletes. But and I used to defend it. I used to be like, oh, there's no way this is scripted. And then eventually the evidence started coming in, and then you would see more documentary about how how it was scripted. So I eventually had to admit that wrestling was fake. And I stopped watching wrestling when I got into college, and I probably stopped watching it when I was 18, and then I picked it back up when I was like 28. One of my roommates at that time, when I was 28, he started watching wrestling, and I told him, I used to watch this when I was a kid, and I got hooked back on wrestling. It was a lot different. It was the Attitude era with Austin, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and it was just it was very different. The women wrestlers that I used to watch back in the when I was in grade school, they were highlighted as much, and they were very unattractive women. A lot of them were way past their prime. They were not that good looking, and the Attitude Era was very sexual. It's like a lot of these women wrestlers were they were like supermodels that also also wrestled, and they would have like bra and panty matches and all that. And back when I was 28, I kind of got drawn into it, and the characters were very they were very good behind the microphone, The Rock and Austin, and I got sucked back into it. And so I watched it for a couple of years, and but I wanted to talk about pro wrestling. It just it kind of broke my heart about 20 years ago. It was one of the WrestleManias, and they brought back as many of the wrestlers as they could that wrestled when I started watching it back in the 80s and 90s. And a lot of them were just, Paul Orndorff looked awful, Hogan looked awful. I'm trying to remember who was on that lineup, but they could hardly even walk. And the only one who actually looked kind of okay was the Iron Sheik, but he was also walking with the cane, and it made me really sad that just 20 years ago, and they were still relatively young men. They were probably like my age. They were probably in their 50s and 60s, and yet they were walking around, and they were a lot skinnier than when they used to wrestle. So I'm coming to the conclusion that they were probably on steroids and did a lot of drugs back then to make them look really jacked. But I just want to give an RIP to rest in peace of Dory Funk Jr. I never really followed his career, but at the same time, he was he was part of a genre that I really enjoyed. I started watching wrestling again about like 2 years ago. I started a Twitter account, and I was talking about just exclusively bulls, and but I thought my page was getting a little myopic, and I realized there's a lot of other topics, and so I picked up wrestling again, and I started watching it. I will say one thing about wrestling now. They really developed the women wrestlers. I actually like the women wrestlers now more so than the men. The first wrestler I got into was Becky Lynch. She came out, and I just really loved her persona. She was just like this tough gal that would just like fight anyone, and sometimes I would see her like knock like male wrestlers in the face, like just punch them and knock them out. And she had this song that when she would come into the ring, it was really high energy, and she would just sit on the rope and just really get the crowd amped up. So I'm kind of glad that that instead of going on the women's looks, they kind of focus more on their character, and they developed them, and now they're very interesting. I really think that the female wrestlers have a very promising future. Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, Jade Cargill, Becky Lynch, all those female wrestlers are. I believe they're probably going to draw in a bunch of new fans. So probably draw in a lot of the female fans, and they'll probably draw in the male fans that want to see something a little bit different. But all right, I just wanted to give a special shout out to Dory Funk Jr. And I'm just reminiscing about my childhood. He was a short part of my childhood. Back then, I really fell in love with wrestling. Rowdy Piper, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Randy Macho Man. There was a certain there was probably like a 5-year period where my life kind of revolved around pro wrestling. I eventually evolved and got other interests, but back then I wasn't following sports, and I was only following sports entertainment. And but back then it was enough. I mean, but now I watch it, but it's almost become a chore. I got Netflix just so I could see Raw on Mondays, and then I watch SmackDown on Fridays. So it's about 5 hours of wrestling, and a lot of times I can't sit through it in one sitting, so I kind of like piecemeal it. I'll catch like 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there. And back when I was watching wrestling, I could watch 2-3 hours no problem, but now I kind of lose interest, and usually out of 4.5 hours of wrestling a week, I probably watch about 3 hours of it, and then the rest I just don't watch it just because I don't have the time or the interest. Other than that, I hope everyone has a great day, and that it's really sunny out today, and that people stay hydrated. And other than that, please like, subscribe, comment, and if you have any suggestions on what I can do to make my Rumble YouTube channel better, just please let me know. I'll see everyone soon.